No regrets whatsoever because there weren't no parts. Yeah, I could play a pimp, but there weren't no parts. They weren't doing Othello. As a matter of fact, they didn't do Othello on film for a black guy till I got there. Lawrence Fishburne came after me. Okay? There was one other guy that did Othello, and you'll never find it, and that was Yaphet Kotto. Did a 16 millimeter maybe 10, 15 years before me, but it's lost. The currency of black film? Yeah. The good news is it is a platform for artists, particularly black artists, to ply their craft. But the bad news is sometimes they do things for the establishment and not for black folks. In other words, they do things to make the money to do more things, and the story they tell isn't necessarily an interesting story or a culturally profitable story. Here's the deal. Hollywood is interested in the flavor of the month. Okay, so when I first came out, when I first came to Los Angeles, they said the flavor of the month was a New York actor. You got to go to New York, get a New York credit, then come back. That's what I did. Went to New York, got a New York credit, came back. So that put me above the other guys that just came to LA. Okay? The flavor of the month was a New York stage actor. Okay? Then I seen that morph into stand-up comedians. So I go up against them, I got all this background, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, they choose a stand-up. Okay? That morphed into hip-hop or into rap, gangsterism. So they get these actors that didn't know how to act, but shit, they were gangsters, you know what I mean? And that's what they want, a gangster playing a gangster, that's what you got. So Hollywood is interested in the flavor of the month. We stopped being the flavor of the month in '72. So you had people training, and those people tried to reach longevity, but some people gave up and got out. Some people didn't have the money to pursue their dreams. And some people who had the money didn't want to back the people who had the dreams. I started in 1967 to today. You add it up, I don't know what it is, but it's over 40 years. No, there was not a lot of opportunity. That's a fallacy. There was not a lot of opportunity. Look at television at that time. There was no opportunity. I mean, there was Mod Squad, and that was one guy, and maybe out of 24 episodes, 3 episodes might be black-oriented, but there was no opportunity. There was I Spy, and there was the one black guy, Cosby, but no, there was not a lot of opportunity. You take the hours of television that were going at that time and check out the people that were black on it. There was one, Dick Van Dyke, one great episode in which Greg Morris, a baby switch, where Dick Van Dyke thinks that he has the wrong baby, and it turns out it's Greg Morris who he thinks he's accidentally switched the baby with. There was no opportunity. As a matter of fact, when I was starting, people told me that I should not be an actor, that I should be a teacher, that I should go to college, get my teaching credential, because that way I'll have something to fall back on, because there are no opportunities for black actors. But me being pig-headed and loving what I did so much, I ignored it. And so what I did was I learned my craft, and by the time I learned all my craft, there was an opening, and there was some opportunities that weren't there before, but it was by no means a huge shopping list for black actors to pick comedy, tragedy, reality, whatever the hell it was. No, there was no opportunity. But we did it because we loved it. That's why we do theater. Because theater, you could do it on the street theater. You could do it in churches. That's where I did it. I did it in churches, religious theater, political theater. We were doing stuff that was political at the time. Black theater, that whole black theater movement was political. And then I was doing Shakespeare. I was in San Francisco doing Romeo and Juliet. And that was political because Juliet was white, and Romeo and his family was black, and we were trying to make a statement about integration. And some places wouldn't even review us because it was integrated. 1968, they didn't want to review us. So no, there was no opportunity. But that's not gonna, theoretically, if you are an artist, that can't stop you. That can't, because people don't want to hear what you have to say, that doesn't mean you should acquiesce to that. No, you have to make your statement as an artist, and you have to figure out a way to get the word out. Yeah, you got a guy like Tyler Perry, who started out in theater, going across the country, doing theater everywhere, boom, 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 and then he makes a splash because he's got this character and he's got a base. Okay, he's the flavor of the month, and he got to deal with Lionsgate to give out this flavor of the month. So then you had other guys that were doing the same thing as Perry, trying to get their flavor out. So no, there is, what we must understand is, if you can show them that you're viable, they will support you. But you have to show them. They're not coming to you saying what you got. You know, they're not going to do that. You have got to slip through the cracks, and then they'll notice you. And once they notice you, they want to co-opt you. You know? So Niggas with Attitude comes out with a CD. Nobody wanted to buy Niggas with a, they couldn't even say it, NWA. That's what they had to do, NWA. And they had some Jewish guy who was ahead of his time saying, these are the next deal. This kind of music is the next deal. And then when it made a lot of money, they said, okay, we're going to take Ice Cube. You know, we're going to do this guy because he's the flavor of the month. And Ice Cube worked it. He knew what he was doing, and everybody shot off from there. You know, Dr. Dre, the rest, they all shot off from there. But they made money. They slipped through the cracks. Ain't nobody backed these guys. You know, the system didn't back these guys. These guys did it outside of the system and then achieved some semblance of success. Tyler Perry, they don't back Tyler Perry. He came up with something that sold, and then they co-opted him. And that's what I learned in the 60s. I'll never forget this. I may digress for a second. But when I was coming up, the young white guys decided to go against the system. So they stopped wearing Brooks Brothers suits. They started wearing a sports coat with blue jeans. That's what they did. They wore Levi's, and that was their fighting back the establishment. What did the establishment do? They came out with designer jeans. They co-opted the idea, because if they can't fight you, they will absorb you. And that's what they did. So you had Pierre Cardin jeans, man. That's what the deal is. If the system cannot crush you, they will bring you into their deal and adopt you. Hi, my name is Ted Lange, and you're watching Reelblack.
Now, I'm a baby boomer. When I was growing up, I never saw blacks kissing in the movies. And when I started studying film, I learned why.
One of the things I got out of being raised by white people is that, you know, the majority of white people don't have that mentality. It was their forefathers that had that. But they benefit from the practices of their forefathers. That's all. It's just like me as a man. I'm not a sexist man, but I benefit from living in a sexist society.